Hello, Dr. Garrett Castleberry here with another video discussion prompt for Comm 3603 Mass Communication Perspectives. We are heading into the fourth week of the class and thus our fourth video discussion prompt. So far, we have attempted to establish prompts that help us generate ideas and talk through the process that relates to our 5-week media analysis essay project in the course. And so we're trying to simplify through synergy, and early on we used it as a brainstorming exercise, even if we didn't call it that. It was more personal narrative, but to get the gears turning, get the juices flowing in terms of thinking about media in different ways, thinking about different kinds of how we can isolate media strands. Then we worked through some refinement processes. And then last week, we even had you share samples of your research. So talk about each of those, a couple of different sources, and give information about it. And that helps us not only articulate ourselves and practice some good citationality, as it's called, through those oral citations of our sources, but it also creates some accountability, and it helps to hopefully, ideally, set a good example for others that may be feeling their way through that process as well. Well, I want to take that to the next step, coinciding with the next phase of that 5-week written project. All right. And so if I'm recalling in the correct order, in week 3, we work on putting together the intro and literature review of the essay of the project. So we're finally going to get into the writing stage in that middle week of the course. So by this point, in an ideal world, you'll have completed or be near completion of that when you receive this prompt. And so we're going to piggyback off of that exercise that you should have completed to draw from to help inform where you're going to go with the week 4 video discussion 4 prompt. All right, so here it is. We want you to take from that introduction that you've written and practice sharing your thesis statement or hypothesis, depending on how you're arranging your materials. Now, a thesis statement is more in that classical essay style, and in essays that are critical or criticism pieces, that type of qualitative or critical analysis, you're going to have a thesis statement. Now, however, the more we get into the social sciences end of thinking about research, and while it's not likely very many would be going after a quantitative study in this course's context, but even if you were, or if you were doing some qualitative studies, there is what we refer to as a hypothesis, right? A hypothesis, is the positioning of a research question. Also often, as I'm blurring words today, also the research hypothesis you may find in some academic articles shorthanded as RQ. That is to say RQ1, RQ2, RQ3, RQ4, and so on. And those RQs are being tested in essence. So in that style of research, you would come up with a hypothesis or RQ, one or more, and then through the process of discovery and the writing and the performing of the research itself, you're attempting to answer that. You're attempting to answer whether or not the question posed is supported or not, based on the evidence provided. Now, when we're able to test against something, say if you were sending out a survey, you were doing a focus group, right? You were doing a series of interviews, that's evidence that can help you to then test those hypotheses. However, when we're studying a media artifact. Let's just say it's a single TV program, or perhaps it's a radio show. Maybe it's the style of a particular magazine article layout. Well, that is a little bit different of an analytic process. And so you are performing that role of scholar or critic or intellectual that is analyzing something that's already produced. So that is what that is, to study some piece of mass communication, a media artifact as we also call it. It's already produced, so it has its beginning, middle, and end there. The evidence is within the text, and that's why we're referring to this as a thesis statement. So that is a little bit of context as usual, and I like to give a meaty build up to what we're talking about. So here we go with our week 4 prompt. In week 3, you wrote that preliminary introduction and literature review sections. Now we want you to look back at that introduction, and we want you to identify that thesis statement that should exist. It is okay for a thesis statement to evolve over time in this style, in a criticism style of writing. That is common. That it's often said that a thesis can crystallize over the course of the development of the project, and for that reason, we have our week 4 prompt. It is thesis focused, and I want you to do this. I want you to identify and then share with us your research thesis statement, the thesis statement driving the essay. What is the focus of the essay? The thesis statement should say it in a single, definitive statement, right? It's a declarative sentence. It's not a question. It's not a hypothesis, unless you're an advanced student doing some advanced type of media research. It should point us to the crux of the article, even if you haven't written all of it yet, and that's okay. But we develop a thesis because we have some assumptions about what the text is going to tell us. And so that's why this can be a helpful part in our writing process, because in week 4 of the class, we do move into writing the body of the essay, the meat of the essay. And so this coincides with kind of those different steps. It's a thesis-based prompt. We want you to first identify, and then, of course, second, the main focus, share that thesis statement. But I want to take it one step further. It is important, as I noted, that thesis statements can shift, can evolve, can change. I want you to practice reorganizing your thesis statement, not changing it entirely, not focusing on something new, but take the thesis statement that you have drafted, the one that you share with us at the beginning of your prompt. And then I want you to, before you make your prompt, I want you to reword it. I want you to reorganize your thesis statement. Not once, but 2 more times. And I want you to have practiced. This is a valuable exercise. Often, if there's time, I like to include this exercise in a public speaking class when we're outlining. It's very helpful, even if we do it after a speech has been given. And I want you to organize a couple of different arrangements of your thesis statement. And thus, coming to the conclusion of it, you're sharing different approaches. This will open up the opportunity for people to comment on different versions, variations of your thesis statement. And so that should open up some fruitful discussion. Maybe our peers will be asking questions about the thesis that helps confirm, yes, it sounds like I've got my audience, my listener, my reader on the right track, hearing about my ideas. Or it might help spotlight there could be an issue with the thesis statement, and so I need to revisit it. I need to make sure it's really clean and clear. I need to make sure I'm using good descriptive words in there, that it's not too jumbled up, that there's no figurative language or things that are causing it to miscommunicate an idea that I am after. And so this is a thesis-focused video discussion prompt. We're drawing right from our week 3 work, and it's going to lead right into potentially how we continue to shape the main body of our essay in week 4. So it's a bridge, video discussion forum here for our Mass Communication Perspectives class. Thank you for listening.